Okay. Very good. Let's get started. And for this, we're going to start with the reading section overview. So just a quick reminder of what we saw last class. So remember, ets.org is your best friend to find more about the test. And for this, maybe Aldana, you can start reading about the reading section, please. You just grab a bite. Don't worry. Christina, can you start reading, please? This description.
Yes, the TOEFL EBT reading section assesses how well you can read and understand materials. Use it in an academic environment. It includes 2 reading passages, each approximately 700 words long, with 10 questions per passage. It should take about 35 minutes to complete the reading sections. Okay, continue?
Yes, please.
Reading passages are excerpts from university level textbooks that will be used an introduction to a topic. The passages cover a variety of subjects. Don't worry if you don't familiar with the topics of the passage. Or the information you need to answer the question will be included the passage. There is a glossary feature available to define words not commonly used if you need it.
Exactly. So in this website that I'm going to leave in the, I'm going to put up in the Google Classroom, there are many videos about the types of questions. Today, we're going to see 3 of the types of questions that appear there. Like these are different groupings, like they call factual information, and we separate that in 2 parts again, vocabulary and reference, and so on. So I invite you to visit this to get an overview of how the reading section is. So with this, we move on to our beginning of the context. So can you see my screen there? Yep, excellent.
Yes.
So first of all, let's see a few of the strategies for the reading section and for reading in general in an academic environment. So this time, let's hear you, Aldana. Please read number 1 and then pause, and I'm going to give a little more, and then you read number 2, etc.
Okay, strategies for reading. Be familiar with the directions.
Yes, so later in the course, I'm going to share with you a platform that has a similarity, and there are many emulators online as well on the test platform, because you have like a little bit, it's kind of like a software that you interact with, right? So be familiar with that. The directions are going to explain how you're supposed to take the test, and you should be familiar with that, so you just can skip, and you save time that way. Remember, this is like a strategy thing. Okay, number 2, Aldana?
Number 2, do not worry if a reading passage is on a topic that is not familiar to you.
Yes, this one sounds difficult to do, but all the information for the question will be there. The only problem is that when you see a lot of words that you don't understand on a topic that you have no idea about, you become anxious and it becomes harder. So in this part is what we have to work on is on lowering our anxiety and knowing that all the information is there. We should be able to answer it, right? Number 3.
Scroll to the end of the passage to see the questions.
Yes, this sounds like the opposite of everything we were ever told about reading comprehension. So I don't know how you learned it, but in my time, back in the day, they used to teach us that you have to read first, once, and then each paragraph more slowly again to absorb it. So for the test, you have to do exactly the opposite. So you have to go, like number 5 says, skim read. So you read the first and second sentence and the last sentence of each paragraph only. And then you go to the questions directly. And you see what the question is and start looking for the answer. That's the recommended way. Yeah.
Okay. On number 4, do not spend too much time reading the passages.
Yes,
that's my problem.
Yeah, you want to know. Is the instinct.
Yes, I spend a lot of time.
Yeah, so that's the idea, that you don't read the whole thing. Like there might be parts of the passage you don't read at all. That's how so I compare it with, I don't know if in your professional life or academic life you had to read papers, but I compare it with that. When I had to, yeah, you read the abstract, conclusion, look at the graphs, and then maybe you will use it or not, and then you read more, right? So kind of that strategy, which is a waste because I had to write papers and you put so much effort and then nobody reads the part that you put so much effort. Yes. And the last one is this, what I recommended. So they say that you should not read detail from the full text, just read like the first or second sentence of each paragraph and the last sentence. So you know what the paragraph is about. And then you only read it back when the questions are there. Then, Christina, can you do number 6, please?
Yes. Look at each question to determine what type of question it is.
Yes. So in this case, we're going to start seeing the types of questions today. And this is going to go on for 3 or 4 classes. So for each type of questions, you have kind of certain strategies to answer. So once you see the question, you will know what kind of question it is. So this is a vocabulary question. This is a sentence insertion question. This is a this or that question, right? And based on that, you dedicate more or less time to it and different strategies that we're going to practice. Let's hear number 7, please.
Choose the best answer to each question.
Yes. So unlike most of our academic life, they don't have like the correct answer, they have the best answer. So that means that even the one that is right might not be completely correct. So it's the best answer. And that can be very frustrating and uncertain for us. But yeah, sometimes the answer that is given, particularly for and this is in the whole test, like in the listening passages, is the one that, okay, this only answers 20% of your question, but it's the only one that answers, or the one that answers the most. The others answer just 5, 6, 7%. So that's why they say choose the best answer. Okay. Number 8, please.
Do not spend too much time on a question you are completely unsure of.
Yes. So you have 35 minutes for 2 passages for 20 questions. So you shouldn't spend more than a minute and a half, including reading in a question. Okay. So you have to go fast. And whatever time you save in one question, you can spend in another one. So if it's something simple, don't spend too much time in it. And if you have no idea about it, within the passage, you can move back and forth. So just skip it and write down in your scrap paper what question you skipped. Number 9.
Monitor the time carefully on the title bar of the computer screen.
Yes, so you have a timer telling you how much time is going down, and we're going to work a lot on that, working with time.
Okay. Guess to complete the section before time is up.
Yes, so if you were not able to manage your time very well, choose letter of the day and mark something. You're not penalized for wrong answers. So you always have a 25% chance that you're going to answer correctly.
Remember information from previous questions.
Yes, so because the test is designed for you to do this, like read the question and then go back, usually the information that is, the questions that are about global information or information that appears in the last parts of the text will be last as well. So the first questions deal with the first paragraphs, the second middle questions with the middle paragraph, and the last questions with the last paragraphs or with the general idea of the text. So when you answer questions 8, 9, 10, you have to remember what you read to answer questions 1, 2, 3. Okay. So
Okay.
in such a short time, it will come to you naturally. I imagine you're not going to forget what you read 4 minutes before. So these are strategies for reading. Then these are tips for reading comprehension. This is something you should do as much as possible. So the first column, please, Aldana.
Read in English every day. Read out loud sometimes. Look at any titles, subheadings, or question given along with a reading. Ask yourself question about the reading.
Yes. So the first one is key. You have to read and listen to English every day so you can start thinking in English as well. We're not going to stop until you start dreaming in English. Then the second one is read aloud. Why? Why do we recommend to read out loud? Because when you read out loud, you read all the words. When you just read, depending on how tired you are, you skip words. And all of you in this class are studying after work or after studying. So you are entering this tired. So it's important to read aloud, to read all the words. You don't need to do it all the time because during the test you won't be able to do it, but it's important to read out loud. And then the next one about the titles, subheadings, or questions is, let's say you practice with things from work or papers or magazine articles, news articles, anything like that, then usually the title subheadings are clues of how it is organized. So it helps you with that. And if you find some academic papers, you're going to have the questions that are asked from the students. And those are more or less similar to the last questions, like 8, 10, or 9, that are about organization of the text and so on. And the final one in this column is about asking yourself questions while the reading. So particularly if you didn't understand the reading very much, maybe you ask generic questions for you to go back and read to answer a particular question. Okay, this one is the hardest one and the one that takes the most time, but it can be quite effective. Okay, Christina, can we hear you for the next column, please?
Pay attention to transition words and phrases. Pay attention to transition words and repeat. Summarize the main points of the reading. Time yourself.
Yes. So the transition words and phrases are very important because they tell you about what the function of the situation is. Like, if you, I don't know, see contrast, if you see addition of, like, also, moreover, like a succession of addition transition words, it means, okay, here's like a list of details. If you see something a lot of nevertheless, nonetheless, it's like, okay, this happened, but didn't influence that much on this, and so on. So it's gonna, particularly when you don't know words on one side of the paragraph, the transition word will help you know if like, okay, what's coming next that I did understand is the opposite because there is a contrast transition word here. Or, this is an example of this. Maybe I can link to the concept, okay? And summarize the main points of the reading. Of each reading that you do is a good exercise to write like the key points. This is going to be useful for not only reading, but also for speaking and listening. And then, speaking and writing. And the last one, time yourself. You're supposed to be able to read. Let me check what was the number. Was it 2,250 words per minute? Does that sound crazy? I have the number here. Time yourself. 250 words per minute. You're supposed to be able to read 250 words per minute. And that's the recommendation. So it's difficult to do everything we recommend and doing it fast, but it's just the recommendation for reading. Okay. Next, we have tips for building vocabulary. So last class, we talked about the Coxhead academic word list. But the key tips here are, first, set aside a certain amount of time each day to study. So we have on your phone, you have a lot of TOEFL vocab apps that you can download. And then you can also use flashcards. You can create flashcards from the lessons on vocabulary that are on the classroom. I don't know if you have seen the material yet.
Yes.
Aldana?
No. Yes.
Aldana? Okay, yeah. So there you have like a certain list for a week that you can use, and you can create flashcards of the ones that you don't remember, right? Or you didn't know before. Then practice vocabulary that is at the level that you need. So there are many words that maybe you don't know, but are either too academic or not academic enough. So you should focus on the Coxhead academic word list, which for us is good because a lot of Latin-based words are there that we already know. Then also when you study a new word that you're just discovering, make sure you study the whole word family. So for example, communicate as a verb, communication as a noun, communicative as an adjective. So make sure you are able to recognize what part of speech it is. Part of speech are these: verb, noun, adjective, what function it has. Then, instead of learning definitions, make sure you learn synonyms. So, for example, to stress in the context, like remember last class we were talking about secondary meanings. Stress, we know what stress is, how it feels. But if you're using it as a verb, it doesn't mean that you're stressing a word, like the word doesn't have feelings. So it's to emphasize. So this is a secondary meaning, and emphasize, you already know. So, okay, this is a secondary meaning in this way as well. And also always study words in the context of a sentence to understand what is the part of speech, how the word is used, what are the expressions. Sometimes it's part of a verb phrase. What, like, do you use it with in, on, at? All those things you learn from context. And also sometimes words are synonyms in one context, but not in another one. For example, I don't know, house. As a noun, it means the building where we live on, but as a verb, it means to give shelter or to host, right? So I don't know, this conference houses 250 of the greatest minds in the world. So it's not where they live, but it's being host of, and so on. So it's important. And then another thing is that the TOEFL repeats vocabulary. So it's very important. They don't say repeat, they say recycles vocabulary. So it's very important for you to not only see the word, but also hear it, because it might appear in a listening passage. So this in the dictionary. Aldana, what dictionary are we going to use?
I have Merriam-Webster.
In the Merriam-Webster dictionary, you have the pronunciation key. And we are using that one because that's the American pronunciation, and most of the audios will focus on the American pronunciation of things. Then the final tip is don't focus on technical words. If the word is too technical about the subject of the reading passage, it's probably not going to be repeated. But focus on academic words and everyday words. So, for example, verbs that are related to a process will be okay, but the name of a particular fungi or a type of tree or something like that, that will probably not appear many times, or your chances of seeing that word are not as big, right? But, or I don't know, the word of a particular legal term that appears on a text, your chances of getting legal content again in the actual exam are low. So you focus more on words that are on the list and that you should have known more than anything else. Very good. So these are the tips for building vocabulary. And now we move on to reading skill number 1. So reading skill number 1, out of the 10 skills that we're going to practice, is understanding vocabulary from context. So vocabulary questions test your understanding of English as well as your ability to use context clues. These are important. This is what we talked about. Read the whole sentence, see how it's being used, are there transitions, etc. To help you determine the meaning of a word or a phrase, this kind of question appears 3 to 5 times in each passage. So you're going to have to practice this a lot. So the skills to understand context. Let's, who read last? Aldana or Cristina?
To read, no, I think.
Okay.
Read the entire sentence with the target vocabulary word in it. Determine what part of speech the word is. Determine if the word looks similar to another word you might know. Determine if there are any conjunctions or similarity or contrast, such as an or but, that connect this word to other words in the sentence. If you cannot get enough information from the sentence with the word in it, read 1 or 2 sentences before and after the word.
Yes, so that is analyzing the context. Just to go a little deeper, because you need to understand if it's being used in particularly if it's a word that you recognize directly, analyze if it's being used in the meaning that you know, right? So kind of like square. Last class, we were talking like, oh, square. Everybody knows what a square is. But in this case, it was talking about squared meals. So square meals was like balanced. It's a different context. And so it's important to read the whole sentence to understand that. Then also determine what part of speech it is. So if the word that you have to either find a synonym for or understand the meaning of is a verb, then in the options, you have to choose a verb as well. You cannot choose a noun or an adjective or an adverb. Then determine if the words look similar. That means analyzing, like maybe it has a prefix. Does it start with intra, or does it end with, I don't know, if? So then you know that intra means inside something. Then if it finishes with if, it's probably an adjective, like protective, communicative, directive, and so on. Then the conjunctions are important because if you use similarity, the word that comes after and is probably, okay, something related to this. And if it's but, maybe is an opposite. So those are important for you to understand. Then if the sentence that contains it doesn't give you all this information that you need, read one before, maybe one after, to understand this context. Maybe this conjunctions of similarity and contrast will come after the word, the sentence, not in the same sentence. Remember, English always has shorter sentences than we're used to. So, any questions here on the skills? Okay. So I'm going to give you now 3 minutes to read this excerpt from the great red spot on Jupiter. Okay, so for those watching in the recording, I'm going to pause it, but take only 3 minutes, please. Sorry, I pressed the wrong thing. Okay, so you've read the 3 paragraphs. What is the topic of the reading?
It's about the great red spot, but
Yes.
it's like a storm.
Okay.
Or
yeah, so the
something
great
like
red spot. And what is the subject of the reading? If you were going to study this, where were you going to study it?
astronomy or something.
Probably astronomy, yes, very good. So now this is an example of a vocabulary in context question. You have again here paragraph 2, I will say, the word draws in paragraph 2 is closest in meaning to. In the actual exam, you will have these things in parallel. So the question will be here and the text will be here for you to scroll down or up. So this is just for logistics in the PowerPoint presentation. So which do you think it is?
I think attracts.
Okay. Why is that?
Because attracts the attention of the scientists.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that is a very good strategy to do. Replace it with the words that you think it is and see how it sounds. A lot of the times it will make sense and okay, then you can verify. Yes, so in this case, all of them are verbs, so you cannot eliminate it by parts of speech. But you have to see, okay, draw the attention. The first meaning of drawing is drawing a picture, right? Then the second meaning of draw is what? No? So do you know what a drawer is?
A drawer, no.
So my desk has 4 drawers. You're probably sitting on a desk now, right?
Yes.
You, Aldana?
Yes.
So do you have little boxes that enter and come out of the desk?
Yes.
Okay.
So those are drawers, right? And why you call it drawers? Because when you draw them to you. So that is the secondary meaning of the verb to draw, is to bring towards you. So it can be used as a synonym of attraction. So these kind of words that are the first meaning are very common. The secondary meaning is the one that is being used. And in this case, it is be. Let's do one more. So the word fluctuated in paragraph 3 is closest in meaning to.
Maybe it's change.
Very good. That is correct. So this is one of these cases that I was mentioning last class where the academic word is easier for us than the everyday language word. So fluctuated for us is a very common word. Fluctuate, fluctuar.
The economy.
Exactly. We have learned this word probably in elementary school already. However, shrinking might be more difficult. So,
Yes.
so grow is crecer, shrink is encogerse. So in this case, for English speakers, shrinking is the easy word And fluctuate is a difficult word. And for us, it's the opposite. However, yeah, in this case, it can be understand that growing and shrinking in width and length. So we know width and length. Okay, so that can be changed. And again, when we replace it, while the size of the spot has changed over the centuries, makes sense, right? So that's how we choose this one. So there are 28 exercises about this in the Google Classroom of reading passages. Okay, so reading passages focusing only on vocabulary questions. And the answers to those passages will be uploaded on Friday. So you can practice during the week and check yourself if you did it right or wrong. And if you have any questions about them, we clarify that at the beginning of class on Saturday. Okay, so with this, we move on to reading skill 2. So first, we were talking about understanding meaning from context, and now is recognizing reference. Aldana, can you read the description, please?
The TOEFL tests your ability to make connections between ideas through the use of pronouns and adjectives. The ideas you have asked to connect maybe in the same sentence or maybe into consecutive sentences.
Yes.
One or two.
So these kind of questions appears once or twice per test, but it is a skill that we study anyway because it's very important for reading comprehension in life. Okay, so particularly for all of us who speak this brand of Spanish where we don't use reference very well. So the reference are either overused or underused in our Spanish. So reference are like it, them, etc. So the Lalo in Spanish, right? So it's important for us to practice it. So what are our referent skills? Cristina, can you please read one and then pause so I can explain a little more?
Determine what kind of reference word is being used.
Yes. So in this context, what that means is you have to determine what is it a possessive pronoun? Is it demonstrative pronoun or demonstrative adjective, etc., etc., etc. So you have to understand if it's talking about a place, a person, a thing. Okay. The next one.
Determine whether the reference word is singular or plural. Eliminate any reference in the answer that do not match in number. For example, this. The theory is correct. This does. The theory incorrect.
Exactly. So if the referent is this and it refers to the theory, like the option will be, okay, this can be correct. But if the referent that is being asked about is these, and the option answer is the theory, it will be incorrect. The theories could be, but the theory will not work. Okay, so this is a simple test to eliminate wrong answers. Next one.
Establish the context around both the referent and the reference word.
Yes, so this is more or less about like what sometimes the referent is referring to something in the same sentence or sometimes to previous, it will always be within the paragraph, but not necessarily to the same sentence.
Okay, replace your answer choice with the reference word in the sentence where it's located to double check your answer.
Yes, these actually have to appear in everyone, in every answer, every skill, but yes, this is a way to see if it works or not. So now we're going to read about tornadoes. So again, let me know when you finish reading. Sorry. A, B, C, or D?
A, B, B, lower part. Or no?
Aldana, what do you think?
The wall of cloud.
It is D. So it is actually the immediate noun before that. Yes. So this is the trickiest one. One is immediately before. Okay. So if you had a comma, that will probably refer to something that was before. But in this case, it refers to wall of clouds. Okay. So yes, let me just show the previous question because I forgot to restart the recording. So in this case, the word they in paragraph 2 referred to, what was it?
The thunderstorm.
Thunderstorms. B. Yeah, exactly. So with that is enough information to get. Very good. So this is reading skill 2. Again, there is a lot of passages. I think there are like 30 something questions to practice this skill in the platform in the Google Classroom. Reading skill 3 is recognizing paraphrases. What are paraphrases? You can read here.
Skill of communicating.
Yeah, please read.
Paraphrasing is the skill of communicating the same primary information in a different way, often using synonyms and changing the word and clause order in a sentence.
Exactly. So this appears only once, maybe per passage. Depends a lot on the passage. But again, it's a very important skill to have, particularly in the academic world. We all had to paraphrase for our thesis, for our term papers, and so on. So it's important to learn to do it in English as well. So the paraphrasing skills, let's hear you, Cristina, for the first one.
Paraphrasing skills. Use punctuation such as commas to break the sentence down into parts that are easier to understand.
Yes. So fortunately, all the texts that we see in the TOEFL will be punctuated correctly, written with proper grammar. So it will be easy for us to separate the ideas. Remember, last class we were talking about simple, complex, and compound sentences where you have one or more ideas. So there, the punctuation will separate the different clauses that represent the different ideas in the compound sentences. Next one.
Identify any transitional words or phrases that can indicate time before, after, meanwhile, first, during, until, finally, contrast. However, but similarly, instead of the other hand, addition, also in addition, moreover, as well as, and so on.
Yes. So again, our transitional words are key for us to understand, like, okay, is this a repetition of 3 things that are similar? Is this contrasting 2 things? Is this, I don't know, talking about in a timeline? That if we pay attention to our transitional words, we will know about that.
Look at the parts one by one and identify important information in each one.
Exactly. So this is going to take a long time at first, but later when you get used to it, then you learn to do it very quickly. So let's read about the mojo. So do you think you have one? Just make a note of what you think it is, and then we're going to analyze the sentence next. Okay. So make a note of what you think the correct answer is, and then I'm going to move forward. So Aldana, help me out here, please. Let's do this sentence analysis. So it says this sentence can be divided into several parts. The first part, Aldana?
The dividing line refers to information in the previous sentence, a separation between the 2 topmost layers of the Earth's surface. You learn from this information that the highlighted sentence states something about the separation.
Yes. So that first part, this dividing line, tells you that information. The next part.
Naming the Mohorovic discontinuity, discontinuity, or Moho for short, tell you the name of the separation. The Mohorovic discontinuity, it also gives you another shortened name of it, Moho.
So another piece of information. This dividing line, dividing, comes from the previous paragraph, sentence, and then the definition of it. Next.
Separates the Earth's mantle from its crust, indicates what two parts are being separated. You learn that the mantle and the crust are divided by the mojo. Yes. And the outermost layer of the earth describes characteristic of the crust. You learn in this part that the crust is in the outer part of the earth, which means that the mantle is the second layer of the earth.
Of the earth, yes, exactly. So we have all this information, and based on that, what did you say? A, B, C, or D?
D.
Okay, let's see. Yay. So here you have top two, the outermost two layers, right? Divided, we get that, and the other name for it. So this is the best answer because it includes all the information, right? So the mojo is another like shorter name for the top layer. Is not the top layer. It is the line that divides the top layer from the second. So that is wrong. Here, for example, it confuses discontinuous is not discontinuity. It's not the same thing, okay? So discontinuity is referring to, in a vertical way, that mantle, the earth mantle, what was the second layer? The crust and the mantle are discontinuous, right? So you have that. But if it's discontinuous, it will mean that it's intermittent. And that is not the same information. And here, which is much shorter than it used to be. No, where is this from? So it's not part of that sentence. So therefore, D is the best answer. Okay. Try to do a similar analysis for this one. Okay. So again, take note of the one that you think is the answer. Let's see what will be the parts of this highlighted sentence. If you're going to divide them to analyze them, how are you going to divide it? I want you to give me like key ideas from the sentence.
I understand the scientist Mohorovicic. No, he don't have the intention of discover the line, but not accidental, but he discovered the line.
Exactly, and it became a significant discovery. So here, though, is a very important word because it tells you that whatever comes after this comma is the opposite of this part, or is a contrasting thing, right? So though is very key. And then namesake, we talk about Mohorovicic, and set out. Set out for us might be a complicated word, but it's very common in English too. Set out is like, didn't start looking for this. Ready, set, go. Set is when you prepare, right? So set out to discover the line. So let's see. Here, though, is a very important word because it indicates that there is a contrast in ideas between the first and the second part. This is important. And here, in the second part, we have this division and the line. Again, we know what we're talking about. So because of this, what is the correct answer? What did you write down?
I write B.
Aldana?
I didn't choose one.
Aldana. So it is B. So Mohorovicic's original purpose was not to discover the division between the crust and the mantle that became such an important breakthrough for osmology. So you have here the contrast part and that it became an important. So you have the significant discovery idea included there as well. Okay, so there are practice sets 3 available in the Google Classroom. They should be available right now. Let me check. Yes, they are available. So 3 sets of around 30 questions each. Now, the last one has fewer because paraphrasing is a longer exercise. And it will be good for you and everybody who is watching to time yourself to see how much time you invest in each question, because it will help you like, okay, if you're going over 2 minutes, then you really have to work on answering faster. And if you like, if it feels right to answer in 1 minute, then okay, this is the pace that I have to maintain. Okay, so these materials are readily available in the Google Classroom already. Excellent. So now we're going to move on to the reading section. So, sorry, the writing section. Please let me prepare here. Also, this presentation is available in the Google Classroom for you to review more slowly. If you want to read the text again, the tips, etc., you can review them there. And here for the writing section. So while I set this up, please, Aldana, can you tell us what you remember from the writing section?
You remember that we have to write. I don't remember how many words. 200.
Okay. Yeah, between 150 and 225.
Yes.
So as it says here, it measures your ability to write in an academic setting, right? So today we're going to focus on the integrated writing task. You have 20 minutes to do this. And what you do is you read a short passage and listen to a short lecture. Then you write a response to what you read and listen. Okay. The second task is an academic discussion task that is on a forum, and you have to state and support your opinion on an online classroom discussion. Okay. So the whole section takes about 29 minutes. I don't know what, not 30. And the guidelines, the rubrics are available here on the ETS website. TOEFL, test takers, IBT, about content. And then you have all the information. This is also going to be available. It is already available in the reading section, but yeah, you can just navigate that page. And let's see what integrated writing or task 1 is about. Wait.
Test. Today, we're going inside the TOEFL IBT writing section, specifically question 1, the integrated writing question. So in the next few minutes, we're going to look at how the question is structured, how to approach the question, how your response is scored. We'll look at a sample response that received a high score, and we'll give you some tips for improving your writing skills. So here's generally what question 1 will look like. For this task, you will first read a passage about a topic. Then you'll listen to a short lecture related to the same topic. And then you will have 20 minutes to type your response at the computer. There is no maximum length for your response, but typically an effective response has between 150 and 225 words. Now let's look more closely at what the integrated writing question is asking you to do. First, you'll see the reading passage, and you'll have 3 minutes to read it. So as you read, look for the main idea of the passage and take notes about key points that relate to that main idea. You don't need to memorize the passage because it will reappear on your screen when it's time to write. Next, you'll listen to a lecture. The speaker will talk about the same topic from a different perspective for about 2 minutes. As you listen, you can take notes on your scratch paper. Listen for information that responds to the points in the reading passage. You will only hear the listening passage once, and when it's finished, the reading passage will reappear on your screen, along with the question. And the question will always ask you to summarize the points made in the lecture and explain how they relate to specific points in the reading passage. Now that you understand how the question is presented, here are some strategies for what to do as you prepare and write your response. As we mentioned about the reading passage, it's important to identify the main idea, which is usually in the first paragraph, and see how it's developed. Usually there will be 3 points that support that main idea. For this passage about computerized voting, the main idea is stated in the first paragraph. It basically says that current voting systems are inaccurate and unreliable and should be replaced by computerized voting systems. You'll find the 3 supporting points in the next 3 paragraphs. Computerized voting would reduce the mistakes people make when they vote. It would reduce the mistakes people make when they count the votes. And it isn't any riskier than other widely used electronic transactions, like in banking. In the listening passage, the speaker is going to indicate his or her perspective near the beginning of the lecture, so be sure to listen carefully. In this case, it's clear that the speaker opposes a change to electronic voting.
It's doubtful that computerized voting will make the situation any better.
Then, when you're taking notes during the listening passage, remember that you're looking for specific points that relate to the points in the reading.
These voters can easily cast the wrong vote or be discouraged from voting altogether because of fear of technology. Furthermore, it's true that humans make mistakes when they count up ballots by hand. But are we sure that computers will do a better job? After all, computers are programmed by humans, so human error can show up in mistakes in their programs. And in many voting systems, there is no physical record of the votes, so a computer recount in the case of a suspected error is impossible. As for our trust of computer technology for banking and communications, remember one thing. These systems are used daily, and they are used heavily. But voting happens only once every 2 years nationally in the United States, and not much more than twice a year in many local areas. This is hardly sufficient for us to develop confidence that computerized voting can be fully trusted.
In this example, the speaker makes several points. So after you find those key points in the lecture, you may be able to match up those points with the main points from the reading. Finally, and this may sound obvious, make sure you answer the question. The question will always ask you to summarize the lecture, and it will always ask you how the lecture responds to the points made in the reading passage. So if you only write about what's in the reading passage, you're not answering the question. Before the test, make sure you understand what the raters are looking for and how each question is scored. The tasks in the writing section will each be given an overall score from 0 to 5. For question 1, the integrated writing question, raters are looking for 3 main things: accurate development, organization, and language use. First, accurate development. The raters are looking for how well you're able to select important information from the lecture, then clearly present it in relation to the relevant information from the reading. Second, organization. This basically means a reader can read your essay from beginning to end without becoming confused. You can help the reader follow your ideas by writing in paragraphs and using good transitions. And avoid redundancy, which is saying the same things over and over, just using different words. The third criterion is language use. Raters are looking for things like sentence structure, word choice, and vocabulary. It's also important that your use of grammar is strong and consistent, though it doesn't have to be perfect to get a top score. Now let's look at a sample response.
Okay, so we're gonna do a lot of sample responses, so we're gonna leave it there. However, it is important for you to understand how it is structured, right? So we're gonna practice 2 answer systems. One is the one that he showed there. It's called the point by point. So I see a point in the lecture and I relate it to what I read before, right? Then what happens if you had no clue, if you didn't understand the accent, if you didn't understand it that well? So you're not gonna have enough points to make the 3, link them to the 3 paragraphs. So we study a second method that is called the block method. So you're gonna summarize the lecture and then talk about the main points of the reading separately, not one by one. So those are the 2 systems that we're going to see, and I'm going to present now. Okay. Very good. So here, as we just saw in the video, you have to write about the relationship between an academic reading passage and a listening passage. You have to explain how they relate. So you're gonna use verbs like cast doubt on, opposes, challenges the points. 95% of the cases, it's like this. The reading is going to say, this is good. The lecture is going to say, this is bad. And you're going to explain that relationship. There is a 5% case in which the reading is going to be, I don't know, a concept, and the lecture is going to be a particular example of that. But that is the minority. We're going to focus more on the contrast. Here, this is the adds or answer information. There is a occasionally 5%, let's say. So our strategies, as usual, are, first of all, be familiar with the directions. You should know what the test is asking you, because the directions are long and they're going to eat a lot of your time. And you only have 20 minutes for this task. So you just continue or dismiss the directions. Don't worry if the material is not familiar to you. All the information will be there. Okay. Then read the passage quickly, carefully. it is important that you understand what it is about. You're going to see it later again, so you don't need to take many notes in the first reading. The first reading is going to last 3 minutes. So there, focus on reading and understanding it very well and identify what the 3 key points presented are. Then take brief notes as you read, if you have time, because you're going to have the passage later. But listen carefully to the passage and take very good notes, because the passage you're going to listen only once. Then this next recommendation is organize your response very clearly. Use transitions to make your response cohesive. You should use at least 1 transition per point and at least 2 transitions in general to in your answer. And use only vocabulary, sentence structures, and grammatical points that you know and are comfortable with. Even though some mistakes are going to be allowed, make sure that the meaning is correct. Also monitor your time carefully and finish writing your response a few minutes early so you can edit and correct any spelling or grammar mistakes that you can find. Okay, let's practice this. So please read. I'm gonna put 3 minutes on the timer, but let me know when you are ready to continue.
Yes.
Okay, so what is the topic of the passage?
It's about natural.
It's about fracking, right? And fracking is the hydraulic fracturing to extract natural gas, right?
Mhm.
So what are the key ideas? There are 3.
It's the main energy
Mm-hmm.
not state.
So this is like a shorthand of the key ideas. You know what shorthand is? So shorthand is when you write very quickly with codes that you understand. Okay.
Okay.
So here, for example, the topic is fracking that gets more natural gas.
Mhm.
Main points are that is good for the economy, that increases natural gas production and decreases prices because there is more offer. It increases jobs and increases money that comes to the states, right? The next point, that is safe, that it doesn't affect drinking water or rivers, and that is less or the same CO2 emissions than coal, and so it's cleaner for the environment. And the third point is that there is lots of power compared to wind and solar, so it's good for the future. So yay, fracking, that's the main idea of that. Now, what you have to do is listen and take notes on a lecture about this, okay? So get a piece of paper, ideally an A4 paper, and a pencil. If possible, get a number 2 pencil, like this. I don't know. Number 2. That's the one that they're going to give you to take notes. Why I recommend you the pencil? Because personally, I am much faster writing with a pen than with a pencil. So I have to get used to the pencil. And I recommend you to practice with a pencil always, because you write slower, the flow of the pencil is different. So you need to get used to it. In your everyday life, do you use pen or pencil?
Pencil.
Ah, you do? Okay, excellent. Then you're all set. but I use usually pens, and so getting used to a pencil was quite a thing. Very good. So get your A4 paper, your pencil, and take notes.
130. Question 1. Writing skill 2. Note the main points as you listen. Example, listening passage 1A.
Fracking sounds like the greatest innovation since the internet, doesn't it? Well, I'm afraid the reading is rather one-sided. Fracking is extremely controversial, and justifiably so. It has many negative aspects. The economic benefits have certainly been enjoyed by the fracking industry, but the states, well, they've paid a tremendous price. Floods of new workers have poured into states with shale sites. This has caused housing prices to skyrocket, so average young families can no longer afford homes in their own communities. Local governments have had to spend more on services like police, trash collection, and schools. And the burden of treating health problems associated with fracking also falls to the states, which, leads to the safety issue. The industry has spent many millions of dollars trying to persuade people that fracking is safe. But the process is inherently unsafe. The liquid injected into the ground contains many known cancer-causing substances, such as uranium, radium, and methane. These toxins leach out, contaminating groundwater. Methane levels tested at some sites were 17 times higher than elsewhere. Also, the waste fluid left in pits to evaporate contaminates the air. There have been thousands of cases of respiratory illness and other health problems, and we haven't even begun to see the long-term effects. Scientists also say that the increased earthquake activity around drilling sites is due to fracking. While it's true that natural gas now provides significantly more power than alternative energies, remember, wind and solar are still very young. Naturally, at this stage, they are less efficient. If the government invested as much money in them as it has in natural gas, solar and wind could compete fairly. There may be no choice. Scientists now believe that America's natural gas reserves were greatly overestimated. They warned that there may be only 23 years' worth of gas left nationwide. Clean and safe renewable energies represent the best hope for the long term.
Okay. Do you want to listen one more time to get better notes? We're
Yes,
practicing
teacher.
now, so
Yes.
it is the time. Okay, wait a second. Okay, so what is the topic of the listening passage?
Is the opposite of the lecture?
Exactly. So
Other
no, this is a
type.
lecture. The reading,
The negative aspects.
exactly. The reading was like go fracking, and the lecture is saying no. Fracking is not as good as it says. So can you remember? I want to see here what your notes were. What were the key points there?
The fracking is controversial.
Mhm.
Yeah, have so many negative aspects. And she said the industry spent a lot of money to pursue people that the fracking is safe, but it isn't. And it's true, the fracking, the gas natural have a lot of power, but the wind and solar are very young. And this.
Okay, anything to add, Aldana?
Yes, the government don't invest in wind and solar. That is the a long-term source of
Investment.
energy.
Exactly. So here you have the shorthand that is presented by the book about, so first of all, fracking is not as beneficial and it has a lot of negative aspects, right? Then the main points, 3 again. So it's not beneficial for the economy, right? So it says only the industry benefits, not the states, because there is an increase of workers that makes housing prices increase and the local people cannot afford it anymore. The local government has to spend more money on police, schools, and trash and stuff, but investment with money that they don't have. So that's the first point, let's say. Good for the economy? No, not really, only for the industry. Then the other one, the key point in the reading was that it was safe. So here she says it's not safe. And it talks about the toxins and how they go into groundwater, right? And that the pools evaporate into the air, causing illnesses. And we don't know the long-term effects of all of this. And also there is an increase in earthquakes. And the final one is that even though natural gas gives more power than solar and wind, is because the latter are a new technology and the government should invest, what you just said, Aldana. And that many researchers say that natural gas is not readily available, that there's only maybe 23 years of reserve. So that we should invest for long-term renewables, right? So this is the like ideal notes that you would take. Of course, listening once under pressure, you're not going to be able to take such good notes, but hopefully you'll take key notes and have good memory to remember the content. So the general outline for the response that we saw in the video earlier is this. So first, you're going to have a topic statement that point out that the lecture and the listening passage either challenges, casts doubt, or opposes points. So there you answer the question, okay? Remembering question 2, like the second part of the question will say like how they relate the reading and the lecture. So you answer that part. And then you summarize the points in the lecture by pointing them each with the reading in each in 3 paragraphs per point. If there is time, you're gonna write a conclusion. Spoiler alert, you're not gonna have time. So as long as you have a topic statement and 3 paragraphs answering is okay. So the question would be something like, summarize the points made in the lecture, being sure to explain how they challenge specific arguments raised in the reading. Okay, so this is a sample answer. Aldana, can you read the topic statement, please?
Okay. The reading passage describes fracking and discusses several benefits. However,
Whereas
whereas the lecture changes these
challenges.
challenges these benefits and opposes this practice.
So there you're answering how they relate to each other. This is key. You have to use the verb that was in the question, challenge. So you have to pay attention to it, challenge, and just a summary. You don't need to put a lot of detail in the first part. So the reading passage describes fracking and discusses several benefits. Only that. You don't need to go deep into like how it's good for the economy and this and this and this and that, because that you're going to do in the rest of the writing. And here, whereas is a contrast transition. You could put a period here and say, however, comma, the lecture challenges these benefits and opposes this practice, or period, on the other hand, comma, and so on. So as long as you put a transition word and then the opposite, in this case, because it's challenges, then you have already part of the question answered. Okay, Cristina, please read paragraph 1.
Paragraph 1. While the gas industry has benefited economically from fracking, according to the speaker, the state have not, because the industry had attracted so many new workers. Housing prices have risen so sharply that people can afford to buy homes. Moreover, local governments have to shoulder the cost of the additional law enforcement, education, and the other service needed, as well as the cost of treating fracking-related illnesses. This information contradicts the reading assertions that fracking has benefited local economies.
Yes. So as you can see, you have a lot from the lecture, from the listening passage, and just a summary of the reading. Why is that? Because you have the reading passage there. And so you're not proving, if you put a lot of information from the reading passage, you're not proving anything. So you just have to learn to summarize and paraphrase the reading. That is the ability measured there, but your ability to express what you heard is what is measured in the first part. Aldana, can you read paragraph 2, please?
Paragraph 2. The reading's claim about safety is also refuted by the lecturer, who mentions the cancer-causing substances contained in the fracking liquid injected into the ground. This toxin can escape into the groundwater and evaporate into the air. As a result, people have become ill, and she worries about the potential long-term effects.
Yes. So in the paragraph 1, we started completely with the listening passage, the lecture, and then just a final sentence on the reading passage. Here in paragraph 2, it starts with what the reading says, like reading's claim about safety, and then is refuted, and then the 3 reasons why it is refuted. Okay, then paragraph 3 again starts with the information from the reading, but then it all goes into the lecture content. Okay, so remember, lecture is la conferencia, la charla magistral, and reading is la lectura. Lecture is our false friend there. Okay, so this is the point-by-point answer. Now, you're gonna give it a try. Okay, so this is the reading passage, and I'm gonna measure 3 minutes for you to read, but you let me know when. I'm gonna tell you when it's 3 minutes, but you let me know when you are done reading and understanding it, just to have a contrast. Let's move on to the main points in the reading passage, just to make sure that you know what to listen for. So the topic is emotions. Okay, emotions is a topic. And the 3 key points are that emotions are universally innate, and Darwin and other research by affective scientists, right? They decided that. The other key point is that we have the same emotions in all the cultures around the world. And that is repeated, right? And the final key point is that we have the same way to express emotions all over, facial expressions and vocalization. Research says that people from Britain and Africa understand when we laugh, when we cry, what emotions are being presented there, right? Okay, very good. Now let's see if there. Listen and take notes.
Page 332. Example listening passage 1B.
I'm afraid that the reading exaggerates the so-called consensus that emotions are an evolutionary adaptation and therefore innate. Many effective scientists support a different perspective, that emotions are socially constructed and vary in important ways across cultural boundaries. Substantial evidence exists that many basic emotions are culturally specific. Let's consider two emotions represented by the Japanese words oime, a feeling of indebtedness, and hyure, which refers to the feeling of connectedness to others. These emotions of interdependency and connectedness felt by the Japanese people do not have parallels in the West. This makes sense, though, since Japanese culture strongly values the collective or group individuals raised in the culture feel and need words for the emotions oime and hyure. Since the Western cultures tend to focus more on the individual, they do not name or experience these emotions in the same way. Finally, let's consider the claim that people, no matter how diverse their cultures may be, use the same facial expressions and vocalizations to express emotions. The problem was that the study described in the reading was too narrow. Researchers looked only at happiness and sadness, but what about other emotions, such as guilt and love? These emotions have not been studied, and for good reason. They have no clear outward facial expression or vocalization. Without any identifiable expression, these emotions cannot be studied, so the claim of universality cannot be proved. Finally, even emotions that are thought to be both universal and observable actually differ from culture to culture. Take, for example, anger. The Inuit or Eskimo people of the Arctic almost never show outward signs of anger. An aggressive response would be too risky in this small culture living closely together in harsh conditions.
Okay. Okay, so what would you say is the topic of the listening passage? Don't be shy.
The lecture, he said, it's not the emotion is not universal or innate, like Darwin said, is like a social construction. Construction is different from the. He said the Japanese emotion.
Yeah.
And said that they express don't have parallels in the West.
Why is that? What characteristic of Japanese society did he mention?
I don't listen. I don't understand.
Aldana, do you wanna add anything?
No, teacher.
Okay. So these are the notes. So the feelings were about interdependence and connectedness because their society is so collective. So of course they're gonna have those kind of feelings, words for those feelings, right? And they're not in the West. And then, so these are the three key points. The first key point that was mentioned is that consensus is exaggerated. It's not really that everybody agrees on that. So this is the key. Other people's perspectives have that emotions are socially constructed and vary across cultures. This is the first contradiction, let's say. The second one is, it says X, so it is wrong. Same emotions, all cultures is wrong. It's not like that. Just so, for example, the example of Japan, and because of the values that we just mentioned, and that the study only included two emotions. So of course, those two emotions might be common, but there are many other emotions. Okay. And other emotions like guilt or love are not expressed outwardly. So difficult to see if we all feel it the same way. And then, for example, anger, Eskimo people or people from the Antarctic do not show these emotions because they live in small groups and they have to live close under harsh conditions. So you don't want to show those kind of emotions that might unbalance the survival of the whole group. So a lot of information in a very short time. Now, what you have to do is summarize the points made in the lecture, being sure to explain how they cast doubt. Your key verb there is cast doubt on specific points made in the reading. So now I'm going to give you 5 minutes to write your topic statement. So your topic statement is the one sentence, 1 or 2 sentences where you point out like, the reading was about this. However, the lecture cast doubt, and explain a little bit of how it cast out, okay? Yes, no?
Yes, teacher.
Okay. Aldana, understand the task? So what you have to write is the first sentence, the first 1 or 2 sentences, that is the topic statement. So you write, the reading passage explains blah, 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 or presents blah, 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 like a 1 sentence summary. And then, however, the lecture, and you use this verb, cast doubt. Why? Because the question has explained how they cast doubt. So you use that verb, and then again, a very short explanation of why it cast doubt, okay? So let me know when you have the sentence ready. Okay, so what will be the topic statement? Both will read it, so
Okay.
you can choose the order.
Maybe the lecture have cast out the scientific consensus that emotions are universal and innate into all the human being.
Okay, but you have to cast doubt on this concept that is presented in the reading.
The scientific consensus.
Yeah. So you have to say the lecture cast doubt on what? So you talk about the concept, but where did you get that concept in the reading? So it's very important to quote your sources. So this that was presented in the reading. Okay. Aldana?
In the reading passage, they talk about a real theory that emotions are genetically hardwired into human beings. And nowadays, we know it's a social construction.
We don't know. The lecturer says.
Okay, the lecturer says.
So you have to use the cast doubt. So, however, in the lecture, the professor cast doubt on the idea and he says is socially constructed, something like that.
Okay.
Okay, so make sure you say who says it. Otherwise, it's plagiarism. We don't want to do plagiarism. So that. Then let's see. Here, for example, is an example. Here, for example, is an example. Here is an example. Can you please read the example, Christine?
The reading explains that the humans all over the world are biologically programmed to experience and express emotion the same way because emotions are universal and innate. However, the lecture casts doubt on this view.
This is also valid, okay? So this is part of the answer. So here, explain how they cast doubt on specific points is part of that. So you talk about the relationship. That is one part of your answer. And then we have to go one by one. So I want you to write paragraph 1. That emotions are innate according to Darwin research, and what the professor said. Okay. So yeah, you should write this in less than 5 minutes as well. Okay, but we're practicing, so don't panic too much about it. I want to show you what the ideal answer is, which is this part, and see how it compares to yours. Okay, so Aldana, can you read the ideal answer?
Okay.
No, here, the speaker says.
The reading.
No, here. The speaker says.
Tengo que leer eso.
Yes, please. This is the ideal answer. And then we're going to compare it with yours.
The speaker says that the reading overstates its position, that a broad consensus of scientists agree emotions are innate and universal. He states that many affective scientists have a very different perspective. They believe that emotions are learning and that they vary from culture to culture.
Yes. So that is the ideal answer, or one of the answers that is presented by the book, right? Now let's compare it with yours, Aldana, and then Christina.
The researchers in affective science have concluded that emotions are a species like evolutionary adaptation on that they are innate rather than learning. However, in the listening, the research say it is socially constructed and vary across culture.
Content-wise, it's very good. You just have to say where you got the information from. So according to the reading, and then research says that. And then, however, you said the researchers, right?
Yes.
So the lecturer explains that the researchers.
Okay.
So where it comes from is very important. You don't want to lose points because you have the correct information, but you're not presenting it well, and it will be silly to lose points for that. Okay, Christina, let's hear yours.
First at all, the biologist Charles Darwin theorized that emotions are a product of the natural selections. And our ancestors developed emotion as an evolutionary thought. Now, the researchers conclude that emotions are evolutionary adaptation are innate to the human being. However, the experts have cast doubt this hypothesis and said that emotions are a social construction and is very different from the culture by culture.
Yes, and again, the same recommendation to Aldana. You have to say where the information comes from. This is what was put in the reading, in the text, according to the author. Like, you have to express who said it, and then the lecturer, the professor. Yeah, I don't know if the expert, I never heard the expert, but the professor, the lecturer, the speaker. Those are good ways to refer to the audio. And yeah, content-wise, I don't have any correction to make to both of you, but just the form, the way that we express it. We have to say where the information came from. So this is the point-by-point answer. This is the outline of the block method. Am I recording? Yeah. The block method, the topic statement is exactly the same. Exactly the same as the first. Information about the topics and how they are related. So the reading passage explains that emotions are naturally innate. However, the lecturer cast doubt on this idea, explaining that they are socially constructed. That's it. But what changes is we have only 2 paragraphs instead of 3. Before it was 3, 1 for each point made, right? In this case, it's just 2. In paragraph 1, you briefly discuss the 3 main points of the reading passage. Why briefly? Because you already have it there. So it's not too much ability to just put it there. So what you are showcasing there is your ability to summarize and paraphrase. So make it shorter and paraphrased. And then in paragraph 2, you discuss the main points of the listening lecture and how they are related to the reading. However, you don't go point by point because maybe your notes are not good enough to actually answer each point. So, or you're not sure about something, etc. So you separate them in blocks. Okay. So, and again, a conclusion if time allows, but you won't have time. I would rather you review and check your spelling and grammar and punctuation than use those 2 minutes to write a conclusion. So do I have an answer here? So here will be the block method answer. So this part, the first paragraph, is exactly the same as before. And the reading passage is short compared to the listening, right? And Aldana, maybe can you read the, no, it's Christina's time to read now. Read the listening passage block,
Okay.
please.
Okay, teacher. The listening passage casts doubt on the conclusion in the reading passage by stating that the consensus in the reading was greatly exaggerated. The lecture explains that the many other affected scientists believe that the emotions are learned. The lecture also refutes the reading claims that the people worldwide feel the same emotions. He gives the example of Japanese words for feelings, indebted to are connected to others. These emotions both relate to interdependence exist in Japan because the culture prizes the group. They do not exist in the Western culture, which focus more on the individual. The lecture points out that the study of the British and African emotions was flawed because it tasted only 2 emotions. He cites research about certain Eskimo cultures and how they not express anger due to living in close and harsh conditions. These facts lead to the conclusion that emotions are learned and are not intrinsic.
So even though it relates to points in the reading, you can skip some of those points if you cannot relate them. It's just as long as you summarize and you present more or less the same information, just in a different way. And you check all the things that the guy in the video told us that we had to cover. So this is a strategy when you cannot put point by point 3 paragraphs of information. Okay, very good. Now let's practice some more. So this is a passage for homeschooling. This is the last exercise we do. So don't worry, don't kill me. I know it's been a long day. So 3 minutes to read this. What is the topic here?
It is when the children study in their homes.
Exactly. So do you know anybody who was homeschooled?
No,
I don't know.
Okay. In the US, it's quite popular, particularly by, which is a good method that you can have. So for example, people who live very far away in the countryside, they can be like where you live is not a parameter for the kind of education you're going to get. Like, so you don't need a certain number of children to open a school and stuff like that. So in that side is good. But unfortunately, it's being exploited by people who are extremely religious, and they homeschool their children because they don't want them exposed to sin and diabolic things. I'm not even exaggerating.
Oh,
Yes.
no.
So it is, in this case, I think is the, what are the key points? The topic is homeschooling, and the key points are?
The adventures and disadventures.
Advantages and disadvantages, okay.
The difference from the with the traditional.
Very good. So main points are less learning than in traditional school, less social interaction, and less varied curriculum. Like, very summarized, those are the three key things. So these three things is what I want you to pay attention to when you listen, okay? Because if we do the point by point, those are the 3 points that you're going to contrast. Okay. Get ready to take notes on the listening.
Writing exercise 2, page 334. Number 1. Listen to the passage. Take notes on the topic and main points of the listening passage.
Okay, you've all read the chapter on homeschooling, right? Okay, so today I'd like to discuss a few of the ideas presented in that chapter. I think some claims that are made are not completely true. Here's the thing. I've been a part of a state panel on homeschooling for the last 10 years, so I'm pretty familiar with the issues surrounding homeschooling. And I can tell you that a lot of people who were involved in homeschooling would disagree with the ideas in the chapter. So let me make a couple of points about that. First of all, it has not been proven at all true that children with a homeschool education learn less than children in traditional schools. In fact, study after study has shown that children in home schools learn far more than typical students in traditional schools. And another point I'd like to make is that homeschooled children can have lots of opportunities for social interaction with other children. Parents who homeschool their children can arrange situations that involve social interaction with other homeschooled children. For example, they can arrange to get together for field trips to museums or parks, or maybe even spelling competitions. Thus, children who are homeschooled can have even more social interaction with other children than children in traditional schools, because they can interact with other children at any time of the day if their parents arrange this. The final point I'd like to make is about variety in the curriculum in homeschools. Homeschool children can be provided with the broadest possible curriculum. This is because parents are not limited by the school boards that decide on the curriculum in traditional schools. Parents are free to decide to teach whatever they want, astronomy or medicine or Chinese language, even if these subjects are not part of the curriculum in traditional schools. So surely the even broader curriculum potentially offered by homeschooling, along with expanded opportunities for social interaction, will allow the children involved to be professionally competitive in their future jobs.
Okay, so analyze your notes, please. Okay, so what are the key points?
The speaker disagree with the reading passage, because he said, I have 10 years of experience in the homeschooling on and for the main points, he said he disagreed with the children learn. He said there are not proof that the children less learning in the
Learn less.
Why, teacher? Sorry.
Learn less.
Learn less.
Mhm.
So they are not proof, he said, about the social interaction.
Mhm.
The speaker said the parents can arrange situation with
Mhm.
another children with children, like the visit museums or
Yeah.
participate in the spelling competition.
Mhm.
About
Okay.
the
What else can we add? Let's hear from Aldana.
And also that the parents are not limited to just the subject of the curriculum,
Mhm.
and they can have a very better curriculum and be professionally competitive in their future jobs.
Exactly. So the topic is support for homeschooling, saying that is good for children, and not true that homeschool children learn less. Studies show that they could learn more. It doesn't say that they do learn more. It's just that they could if the parent is good at teaching. There could be greater opportunities for social interaction and more varied curriculum. Like you could teach them Chinese or astronomy that are not part of the regular curriculum. Okay, so again, summarize the points made in the lecture, being sure to specifically explain how they challenge. So in your topic statement, you have to use the verb challenge. Specific arguments made in the reading passage. Again, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to write this, and then we're going to check. But a little different this time, I want you to write on the chat box. So write your sentence there so I can check your spelling, your punctuation, etc. You can prepare in paper as you're doing it now, but later when you have your final version, do it in the chat box, please. Okay. I want to see you typing. So this part is what you have to type, your topic statement, where you say the topic of each passage and explain how they relate. In this case, we're going to use challenges as a verb.
Yes. The lecturer explained that studies show how school children could learn more. They have greater opportunities for social interaction and more varied curriculum. And this challenged the arguments made in reading passage where they support the traditional school. They think homeschooled children learn less, have less social interaction, and less varied curriculum than those with as traditional education.
That is the first paragraph. What about the topic statement? So this is the first main point and very well presented. But what about the topic statement? The short version. In conclusion, that would be a conclusion, not topic statement. So, Cristina, can you read yours?
Okay, in conclusion, the speaker challenged the reason of the information presented in that reading and demonstrate that the children in homeschooling learn, have social interaction, and have varied curriculum even more than children in the traditional school.
Okay, yeah, this will be good for a conclusion, but what you had to write was the topic statement.
Okay.
So let's
Maybe
see.
In conclusion.
So you will have to say something similar to, so this one, the reading passage presents the idea that homeschooling is not the best for children. However, the speaker in the listening passage challenges these points, explaining or presenting his support for this method. No spoilers, just explaining how they relate to each other. Okay, that is your topic statement. And then you go deep in each paragraph, talking about what, like Aldana's first paragraph, like that is a very good first paragraph where you talk about like the reading says less learning. Then here they said, I know it could be more and what studies have shown, etc. So this is for the main point, like the first paragraph. But the topic statement just has to be what they are about and how they relate to each other. Okay? Very good. Don't worry, we have much more to practice for next class. And we're gonna cover this and practice them in class as well so that we can review and check and compare, okay? So for
Teacher,
next class, yes?
sorry, I have a question. How we can start this paragraph?
The reading passage presents this idea. And then
Okay.
you transition using the verb that is in the question. And however, the lecture says this, but very short, no spoilers. Leave all the information for the actual point by point or block paragraphs. Okay. So in the Google Classroom, you have 3 practice sets for reading for the 3 skills that we did. So that is important for you to do. And on Friday, the answers will be published as well. Okay, this material is also available on the Google Classroom, and we're gonna continue. We have 1, 2 more to practice next class, okay? Very good. Have a lovely rest of your weekend, and thank you for joining the class today. See you next Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you, teacher.
Bye-bye.
See you.